We acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands of Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. We also pay respects to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia present here. And I will just share one tip before I hand over to Tisha, and that's if you're unfortunate enough to be working on one screen, because this is such a hands-on session, you might want to split your screen, and on a Windows machine you can do that by pressing the Windows key and the left or right arrow, and then that allows you to see Tisha's screen and be working on your screen on one screen. And I will now stop sharing and hand over to Tisha.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I will go ahead and get my screen shared here. Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you are here. I hope that you've been having a lot of fun in Canva and just getting to explore and try some of the ideas that we've talked about. I know that there's so much, and Canva is continually growing. I know since we met last time, there's new apps, there's new features, and that's going to continue. So I'm really glad to be on this journey with you. It's been so fun, and it is sad that this is the last one, but that just means we have to schedule more, I think. So those of you who maybe, I'm assuming that you probably have been to one of my other sessions, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on the introduction, but I do now split my role between Canva Learning Consultant and Global Community Manager. So you'll see me a lot on the Canva Teachers community on Facebook because I'm creating content for that space and engaging the community there, as well as on Twitter. And so really trying to just engage people globally in conversation about how they're empowering student learning with Canva for Education. So we have been together for a few sessions so far, and you might have increased in numbers since the first time we met. And so I would love to know, just at this moment, how are you feeling as far as your comfort level? Are you feeling, hopefully you're beyond a 1, but what else, like where between that 2 and 5 spectrum are you feeling you are landing at right now? And if you can just put that in, you can hands up or in the chat, either whatever you're comfortable with. I saw a 4, a 3, a 4, good. So it looks like you're all spending quite a bit of time in Canva and using it a lot. And like I said, there are things that are being added to Canva all of the time. There's always new learning. I am learning. I spent a lot of time in different apps in Canva this last week, and there were so many that I hadn't ever, they must have just appeared because I had not seen them before. So we are going to have resources that you're going to have access to in the same deck that I put the resources in for session 1. I just thought it would be easier to have it all in one place. And so in the link that we put in the chat, we can, Abigail might want to place that in there again if you missed it. But in that link, when you open it, if you just scroll down, you're going to see the resources for session 2. It's going to start with the 1s, but the 2s are right below it. And it's going to look very similar to the first session because you're going to have the presentation deck. I have the participant guidebook for session 2 there, our collaborative activities for tonight, as well as teacher resources as well. So just making sure you all have that. We will be jumping in to the participant guide and the collaborative activities. So you will want to get that link and be ready to click on that collaborative activity piece because we're going to be jumping there right now. And what I would like to do is spend some time just kind of thinking about, I know I was just telling Abigail that I have a colleague that works for Canva that I work really closely with, and she actually lives in Adelaide, and she was just talking this week. I had a meeting with her on my Tuesday, I believe it was your Wednesday, And she said that it was changing the seasons there as we're getting fall weather here in Oregon and it's getting crisper. You're all warming up. And so I would like to know how you're feeling about moving into the warmer season. So if you would like to go into elements and find something that is going to express how you're feeling, if you have access to apps and you want to look for a GIF, you can bring something in from there as well. But just as a little kind of icebreaker to get us going today, I'll have you add to that. Now, I will also put this direct link into the chat. So if you can't access that resource for some reason,
I've put it in, I think. So that should be all good. If you can't open it though, you might need to log in first through Canva first. However, I might have put the wrong link in because I'm seeing something different.
I see people in here now. So, and I dropped the direct link to the whiteboard in there too. So, if you are in here and you are able to move around, again, you'll want to go to elements and maybe bring in a graphic. It could be a photo of just expressing how you're feeling about moving into warmer weather there in Adelaide. And then if you want to go into apps, and if you have this, I don't know, I can't remember, Abigail, are your third-party apps turned off?
For teachers, some are and some aren't. So it depends. Okay. But for students, I think most of them are.
Sure. This one might be blocked for you, but there is a Giphy app that will add GIFs. And so if you wanted to see if that one's available, that would be in apps here on the sidebar. But you can bring in just different graphics and photos from the Elements library as well. I love it. It looks like that is an excited feeling. I know I'm always so excited when after a long winter here in Oregon, when the sun comes out and I see blue sky, it always makes me so happy. I love it. Fantastic. And I have to remember my calculations with Fahrenheit and Celsius. I'm trying to remember what 40 is in Fahrenheit.
We've just got a question. Can you show us how to get to the apps again?
Absolutely. So absolutely. So if you are on the sidebar here, it is, if you count down from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That should be the 8th icon down. It looks like a waffle. And in that waffle, when you type in the search bar, so I typed in Giphy. It looks like we do have a Giphy in here. You're going to be able to access the GIFs there and bring in something that expresses how you're feeling. That's funny with Adam Sandler. So that is how you get to your apps. And what happens when you bring in an app in Canva is it populates on your sidebar. But these also can be tucked back in your apps at any time. So if you, for instance, wanted to make this bingo card app go away, I could just click on the little X right on the left-hand corner, and it's all going to tuck back into apps. So for those of you who like things neat and tidy, and you don't want your sidebar cluttered with apps, all of the apps can be tucked back into the apps category. I love it. Thank you all for sharing. It looks like there is mostly excitement and someone who's just tired. I love it. Fantastic. Thank you all for joining in. I thought we just would be fun to kind of get started today and to be able to think about how we are all feeling about the weather. I realized that when I shared that link, I'm sharing directly into my presentation and not to the original deck that I created. So that is fine. You just all have a backward, you all are in my deck right now. So just don't delete anything and we'll be okay. So I'm going to go back into present mode. Our time together is going to cover these topics. We are going to do a gallery walk in just a minute. I would love for you to all share the things that you are doing, the things that you're creating since the last time that we met. And then we're going to be jumping into our focus on capturing and demonstrating student learning tonight. And then we will close with a Q&A. So I really want to just devote a little bit of time on the front end to answer questions as you have all been creating and exploring and learning about Canva. I want to make sure that I address those questions that you have. So we are going to do that right now. And for this deck, I'm actually, so some people were in this deck and some people were in the other, and that was my mistake. I shared 2 different links with you. So I am going to share this link because this is where the rest of the whiteboards are, and I am going to put that in the chat. And when you click into that link, you can click out of that other link that I gave you. We'll be spending the rest of the time in this one that I just dropped in the chat. And when you get in here, you're going to go to page 2. And it is just a blank space for you to share things that you are working on. So you have a couple different choices right now. One choice is you can go to something that you've created. So let's say let me just say I'm going to go to this particular design here. If I go to my share button up on the top right and go to view only link and copy that, what happens is when I copy that and I go over to my gallery, it is going to paste that into my gallery. So I can go ahead and just click my Control V. And now I have that design in here for you to look at. Now, if you don't have something created that you want to share, you also can just add a sticky note. So if you go into Elements and you just want to write about what you've been working on or creating, you can just grab a sticky note and you can type and share something that you're working on. If you have a question, you also can post a question that you have, and we can address all the questions that are coming up as well. So I am going to set the timer down here for a few minutes. I need to move this out of the way. So let's give everybody about 3 minutes. I always can add more time to the clock if needed to share what you're working on, share any questions that you have that you want answered. I want to give you time to now read what everybody else wrote. So let's go ahead and I'm going to add 1 minute to the timer. And what I would like you to do is if you go into Elements up here and you scroll down to whiteboard graphics, you can add some graphics. I don't know why mine's kind of glitchy right now, but you can add some graphics to the board. So if you wanted to do like a thumbs up on someone's response, you could put a thumbs up or a +1 or a heart, but I'll give you that minute to just kind of review what everybody has added to the board. And just out of curiosity, I want to address that question about the timers. Can you all change my timer right now? Can you go in and make it a different time? Yeah, you can. I really don't think that there is a fix for that. I feel that other people have mentioned that before, so I don't know if that's, I know that with Canva, they always are addressing things that are seeming to be an issue, and so that might be on the radar for that to be able to be locked down, but right now there is not a way to do that, unfortunately. So I want to address some of these things. I love the just lurking, happy to watch and read. I get that, and it's totally fine to be a lurker. I love it. Some of the things that I love seeing, Amelia said putting together some sensory templates for support staff to use when working one-on-one with students. That's amazing. I love that. Can videos and audio clips be turned on for students? My English class is making travel advertisements and we were hoping to use those files. Abigail, do you want to address that? Are they turned off?
I don't know because they should be able to video themselves. But is this clip searching and finding clips maybe? I'm not sure what features are turned off for students and what are turned off, like different from students and teachers. I do know that we made a global decision to turn some features off. However, your school IT person does have admin rights to go into your school console, and if you get permission from your school leadership that they're happy to take the risk for that feature to be turned on, then you're able to get your site to turn on specific features for your students. Someone else asked for a list of what's been turned off and what's been not been turned off for students. So I have a bit of a dig to see if I can find that, and then I'll publish that list somewhere, noting that things are coming online all the time, so it might be difficult for that list to stay current.
Sure. No, that's great. Thank you, Abigail. I appreciate you addressing that. In that, I mean, I like that Canva kind of gives that ability to turn things on and off, but sometimes it is hard when you're not sure what those features are and wanting to kind of anticipate that. So that is helpful. This was a staff meeting presentation analyzing data. I love that. I see it looks like a whiteboard and Tasha put on there. That's fantastic. Elaine says creating poster templates for student leadership to use in their house shield competitions, sharing with students and the teachers to collaborate on the same design and change as they wish. Amazing. Annette says, I have made a presentation using Canva. It is part of our morning class meeting. I found this to be a great way to start the day, and I can edit it and set it up for the next day if I'm not at school with the students and can still access. That's amazing. I love it. I think I covered everything. Oh, Stacy's at the top. I've been working towards having screen recordings students can access, particularly to help solve mathematical problems, also using recordings to explain assessments for students to refer back to. I love that use of the recordings. That is amazing. I've thought too about the draw tool in Canva and how you could have students, work out those math problems with that draw tool. And I don't know if that is part of what you are doing, Stacy, but then, having them go in and explain their work with that recorder. So lots of really great possibilities there. And, as you are working, I'm looking at this sidebar for my elements. And this is brand new, like so brand new that this is the first time I've seen it, that this AI image generator is right here in our elements panel. It used to be tucked into apps, and it was called text to image, but this is new. So it's basically the text to image, but you're not going to have to go into apps to get it. And what I have found is that text to image is getting more and more refined. And when you type something in like poodles at a tea party, I choose whatever style I want here. I can choose my aspect ratio. And when I create the image, I have found that it is doing a really good job. When this first came into Canva, it was a little bit, like you just didn't know what you were going to get. And sometimes the pictures were great. And sometimes you're like, what is that? But the last few times that I have used this, it's pretty amazing what it comes up with. So here, look at these poodles at a tea party. How cute are they? So really fun. And so I think about this, using this for learning. It can go a couple different ways. If your students don't have access to this and for some reason it's turned off, you can create an image and maybe have your students do a creative write and put it up on the board and have them write a paragraph or a story about this image that you put in, right? Or if students are writing and maybe have done a writing assignment and then they want to generate an image to go along with their writing, they could do that. I think there's a lot of different ways that this could be brought into learning, but I love that they have brought this right into that Elements tab. So thank you all so much for sharing. It's so exciting to see just all of the ways that you are all exploring and bringing Canva into student learning. And, you know, the last time that we met for session 1, we talked about executive functioning and we talked about activating prior knowledge. And so what we're going to be spending time on today is we're going to be talking about capturing student learning and talking about demonstrating student learning. And there's lots of ways that we can do both. We talked in the last session about digital notebooks for executive functioning. And these are great for capturing student learning as well. And so when you think about students maybe keeping those portfolios and keeping those curations of their learning, great to put that in a digital notebook. You also could create a student website for their curation of their learning as well. Also, having students create their own flashcards. And there are lots of templates across all different subject areas and grade levels in Canva. And so having students really think about that vocabulary practice and really being able to create, you know, it's great if we create a set of flashcards for them, but it's even better when they create those flashcards for themselves. And they could have them printed out. You could have digital, they could have a set of digital flashcards. And then really being able to have them work on that compare and contrast or organizing their writing and really thinking through problem versus solution. And one of the things that I appreciate in Canva as well is that there's so many ways to do this, right? We could give this to students as a template and they could work on this individually. We could give them a template link and maybe they share it and they work on this in pairs. We could bring this into a whiteboard and have a whiteboard activity for students. And so there's multiple ways that we can engage them in these activities, and the templates in the Canva library are numerous. There's many organizers that fit various subject areas, fit different ways of organizing as well. And so you can see just in this example here, 2 very different graphic organizers for different types of learning activities. And I am going to wait on going to the whiteboard, and we're going to go to the whiteboard at the end when I'm done with talking about demonstrating student learning. Demonstrating student learning is quite a bit longer and it has more examples. And I think of all of the different areas to be able to use Canva for, demonstrating student learning is my favorite, because when we empower our students to show what they know in a way that they can get excited about, it's amazing to see them come alive, and students get so excited because they really do become owners of that learning, and it changes their whole approach to the learning experience. So one of the ideas that I love is this idea of a resume, not for themselves to write their own resumes, but have them create this resume for a maybe fictional character, or maybe a character, like a character from a novel, or you know, somebody in history that they're learning about, or maybe it is a famous scientist, right? Or maybe in art, they are going to be writing a resume for a famous artist. And what they're doing when they're creating these resumes for either a historical figure or a fictional character is they're really having to synthesize what they've learned. They're really having to pull out the most important information that would be highlighted on a resume. And in the process of doing this, they also are learning how to write a resume. So now they might have created this resume for you know, a fictional character or a historical figure, but now they have that background knowledge. So when it comes time for them to create their own resumes, they're already going to have practice doing this. And so I really love this. This is a perfect example of how, though there's 80,000 templates made for education in the template library, there are over 610,000 templates that are non-education specific. This is a perfect example of a non-education specific template that is great for education. It's just thinking about repurposing some of these things in new ways. The infographic is probably one of my favorite things in Canva for students to create, because there's so many ways that they can use these across all subject areas and across grade levels. So it could be in elementary school, creating an infographic on magnets, or the life cycle of a butterfly, or a historical figure, or it might be a way for students in science at the high school level to be able to visually communicate data that they gathered in an experiment, right? There's multiple ways that these infographics can be used, and there are multiple templates that you can use as a starting point. And so when we think about this, also bringing this into student learning, we have lots of ways that we can scaffold this. For our high school kids, we might have them select their own infographic template. And so they can go through the template library and pick the one that fits exactly what they want to share. For our littler kids, maybe we craft that base template, right? We find a template that we think will match the kinds of information that they're going to be communicating. Maybe we want to lock some of those features in place in that infographic so they're not movable. And then we give them still some creative freedom to add their own personalities and change their own colors and add their own information. And so we can really lock these down and scaffold as much as we want to, or we can open up that freedom and give them as much creative freedom as we want. And so a lot of that's going to depend on their comfortability in Canva, their age level, and what really the purpose of that particular assignment is or activity is going to be for your students. I love this idea of a magazine and having your students curate maybe their own magazine covers. They could bring in their own images. They could create their own videos for that magazine cover. They can choose their elements and their layout. They can share a view link and maybe even do a voiceover, like using that present and record feature in Canva. And they could also print them out. So there's lots of options there. I love seeing those smiling faces in that picture that is from that Twitter post. But really, when we can kind of find these new, unique ways for students to show what they know, it's fun because they get to do something maybe that they haven't done before to show their learning. And so really thinking outside of the box and maybe taking those things that you've always had your students do to show that they understand a concept or understand the standards being taught, and maybe bringing it into something like a magazine and having them show their learning that way. I also really love this idea of the podcast. You can, if you wanted to, app smash Canva with another platform like Soundtrap. However, you don't need to have another platform. You could create your podcast right into Canva. We had I believe it was a fourth grade class in my district here in Medford, Oregon, that a teacher had done kind of the typical book report for years, and her students didn't like doing it. She always just didn't have a whole lot of excitement. Students weren't engaged. And so she wanted to do something a little bit different. And so the instructional coach that supported this teacher asked her if she would want to try to do a podcast. And so these students created kind of a podcast graphic for their podcast, came up with a snappy little title for it. And then they went in, they were paired up, and the teacher had a whole criteria of what needed to be included and a rubric and everything. And these students paired up and they created a podcast together. And they just had a dialogue back and forth. They wrote out a script. And in this podcast, they did a book review and shared a little bit about, summarized the book that they had read and kind of shared the review, whether they thought it was a good book and why. Yeah, and it was really clever and really well done. And it was just really cute to hear these kids' personalities come out in the podcast. And when it was done, the teacher said, "Oh my goodness, my students shared so much more than they ever did in a book report. They had so much fun and they're begging me to do another one." And so I think, again, like finding these new ways for students to express what they know can be really, really powerful. The video feature in Canva, I think, is probably one of my very favorites because I've seen how much students love it in the classroom. And again, I have worked with a lot of classrooms in our district here in my hometown. And one of the things that I do most often with them is the videos, because they just love it. They love getting to create. And it's amazing when I've had students create videos in Canva, how fast they pick up on it, because video is really a language that they are speaking in. Our students in various grades are on social media, right? They're on TikTok, on Instagram Reel. They have that just in time learning mindset, where if they need to learn something, they're going to go on YouTube and they're going to figure out how to do it. I know my son and my daughter both are the same way. When they've needed to learn something, they go and they learn it right when they need it. And so when we can get our students to create kind of those just in time learning clips or videos, or those bite-sized videos explaining what they know, it can be really powerful. And really, the video feature is pretty intuitive in Canva, and it allows for a lot of creativity. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the video as well is that you can bring other students into it. So you can have multiple students in there creating at the same time. When I was in a classroom, and I've done this in a lot of classrooms, but in this particular class, it was third graders. And they had just learned about Native Americans in our area, and they had done their research, and they researched clothing and shelter and food. And there was like 4 or 5 different areas of research that the teacher wanted them to do. And they had already done that when I had come into the scene for this video project. And all I did was I created a very simple template. It was just a blank template to start with. And I added a block, like a text box for title on one page. The next page, I put a title on the top that said shelter. The next page said food. The next page said clothing, and whatever those topic areas were. And then each student was assigned a page to create. So one person was in charge of the clothing page, and one was in charge of the food page. And they had a blast, and they worked really well together. We had about 4 or 5 in each group that were creating these videos. And it was amazing how they really came together to collaborate, synthesize the learning that they had, the research, and be able to put this, weave this video together. One thing that I found some teachers like to do is, if you're worried about students spending so much time on the creativity that they're not getting the content on there, make the content a requirement first. Like, you need to have the content, and then I'll check it off, and when you're ready, you can add the rest. So there's always those little pieces that you can add in to support the learning. This particular book trailer is just a fun way to, again, kind of read that book report and have your students really kind of synthesize their learning, summarize it, bring in those pictures, those objects, the music, and they could even turn their story into an audiobook. So there's lots of really fun things that students can do with that. And what I love too is that you can, anything that students create in Canva, they can make a QR code from it. So if you wanted to post those QR codes, so when you had a family night, or you had you wanted to do a gallery walk even in the class, the students could post those QR codes for everybody to see. And you also could do a gallery walk like we did together at the beginning of this session, and have students share their book trailers in a whiteboard gallery as well. One thing that I think is great with whiteboards is that there's no borders, right? And so I think one of the challenges I remember as a kid, the challenge with timelines was you always ran out of space on the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, right? And you never had enough room. You had to tape all the pieces of paper together. Well, if you use a whiteboard in Canva, not only are you not going to run out of room, but now you can add those hyperlinks. So you can link either words, or you can link, you can actually embed things right on that timeline. You can link graphics on there, which is really, really, it's fun and it's easy. One thing too, I'm just going to actually back out of my presentation for this, If I click on an L, so there's lots of shortcuts in Canva. If you click the L on your keyboard, you're going to get an automatic line. And if I double click on that line, I am able to type right on my line. So now I'm going to be able to add those markers on my timeline really, really easily, which is fun. Another kind of little trick with lines in Canva is I also can create elbowed lines. So if I want to elbow things out in different directions, I can do that as well. So it's kind of just a fun little trick that the name in the timeline hasn't been around for very long. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you. Also, while I'm talking about shortcuts, if you click an R on your keyboard, you are going, oh my goodness, you're going to get a square, which also is going to turn into a rectangle. So R is rectangle, L is line on your keyboard. And if you click an S, you're going to get a sticky note. So those are shortcuts that you might want to just remember are there. Portfolios, like I shared before, I talked about the digital notebook and how you can keep your portfolios in there. We've talked about digital notebooks for executive functioning and those planning pages, but also thinking about having your students create a website or a presentation deck that is going to have a portfolio curation. And in those, either the website or the presentation, you're going to be able to have those links. So you can create, with that click of an R on your keyboard to make a square, that square can easily turn into a button. And all of the shapes in Canva are text ready. So if I was to go in and I was to bring in a square, I can easily make this a button that has maybe rounded corners if I want rounded corners. And then I can type right in this. So I could type in the word resources, and now I have a button that I easily can add a link to. So thinking about your students and wanting to having them create those portfolios of learning, they can easily create those portfolios by custom making them with buttons and different links. Also notice when I link something in Canva, I can put a URL here, but I also can grab any other pages in this document or other presentations. So if I wanted this button to not go to an outside resource, but I actually wanted this button to go to another page or another design that I've created, I'm going to be able to do that and find it right here within that link tab. So lots of options there, but I think it's really empowering for students to be able to create their own portfolios and their own curation of their learning. Game presentations are really fun in Canva, and it's fun for us to create games for students to play, but I think it's even better when students create those games. So what a great authentic assessment for students is for them to create a game based on the content that you taught in a particular unit. And in the game, in the library in Canva, you're going to find lots of different game presentations. And I'm actually, what I'm going to do is I want to just show you some of the games. So if I go in to game presentation, these games will come with instruction sets. This one is a set of questions. Notice there are some like memory games, who am I games. It's on the quadrilateral game. There's all sorts of things here. And there's icebreakers that you can look for. And so when you go in here, what I find is that sometimes these games are like, they're fun to play as is, but sometimes you go in and you find a game that you may not play quite the same way, but maybe you come up with another idea of how to play it. So think about our students when they go in here and they look for game templates, they can create their own games. Not only can they create their own content and questions for the game, but they also can create how that game is actually played, which is really fun. So I love the idea of having students kind of create those kind of game experiences. I'm going to share one more before we go back to the collaborative whiteboard, and that is comic strips. Comic strips, I think, are a great way for students to synthesize their learning, and there are lots of comic strips in the Canva library to choose from. And what's neat about these different comic strips that we have in Canva is that oftentimes they are going to come with instructions. They're going to come with a blank template, and they're even going to come with illustration sets. So our students can copy and paste those illustration sets right into their comic strip. Another thing that I think is really fun to do is to actually be able to go in, and you could resize this to a whiteboard, and you could make this a kind of a whiteboard experience where I now can go expand this to a whiteboard. And what I can do is I can take this illustration set. So if I went and copied this illustration set, and I could go in and I could move that illustration set right next to my comic strip. So let's say I wanted to paste it over here. So now, especially for my primary kiddos, I could lock this in place so it won't be movable, but then I can have my students just drag their little people in, right? So now it's really easy for my students to be able to they don't have to go into Elements and find those people. They can actually grab them from the illustration set that you've created for them. You could also go in and maybe you want to bring in your thought bubbles, right? So now in this collection, of course, I would take time to put a background behind these people and all of that, but I can go in and I can bring in these little thought bubbles that I can add as an illustration set too. So now they can move the thought bubbles in with the people. So I think it's a really kind of a neat way for you to kind of think about doing comic strips, especially for your littlest learners that might have a more difficult time going into that Elements library and grabbing their own images or their own graphics and their own photos and such. All right, we are going to go back into our collaborative link here, and I will share it again just for those of you who lost it. And we're going to go to page number, let's just go to page 4. I have kind of a page set aside for capturing student learning and demonstrating student learning. But if we just all want to go on page 4, and anything that I shared that made you think about a way that you could bring this into your own classroom, I would like you to add it to the board. If you want to take a moment and go into the template library and maybe find a template that you'd like to try, feel free to go and grab that template and paste it in here as well. But I just wanted to have you take some time to really kind of process which ideas stand out to you most and which ones you'd like to bring into learning in your classroom. And you can go into Elements again if you would like and grab a sticky note to bring those sticky notes in to add your ideas. And I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes. I love just reading your reflections and all the ways that your mind is spinning and thinking about using this with your students. I love just your comments on student portfolios and having students select that work that they're proud of to show families. I like the idea of students creating their own book. There are storybook templates in Canva as well. Sometimes I feel like, especially with our littler learners, just starting out almost with a very blank, with any learner really, when you start out with a blank template that doesn't have a lot on it, and allow the students to be the creators, right? Let them add all of the details to it. Sometimes I think that that's a more powerful learning experience. And so you can find storybook templates in Canva, but you also can just start with a very basic template and then allow students to add the text boxes. You could have maybe the text boxes set in place so that they have a place to write, but maybe they are able to add their own pictures and such to the storybook. I like the idea of comic strips for our kids with learning difficulties. Absolutely. Love book templates. My 7-year-old makes them using this feature. I love the child-led aspect of this, letting their creativity flourish is really wonderful and supports all different learning styles. Absolutely. I would wonder if you could create a digital museum like the PowerPoint museums. Ooh, are you thinking of I'm wondering, Alicia, are you thinking in a whiteboard? I'm not sure if I know what the PowerPoint museums are, but it sounds very cool. I thought students could use the comic strips in science to explain a topic. For example, when we do geology, use the comic strip to explain how igneous rocks form. This would open a lot of creativity for students. Yes, 100%. Had my 7 science students use an infographic to explain the water cycle and how we reuse water. These are all amazing. Yeah, and storybook telling through video slides and the podcast story. I think that what's really neat about this is that there are infinite ways, right? And we can bring all of these different features of Canva together. So you could create the storybook, but then you can have your students maybe do a recording. You're going to be able to maybe have them create their own illustrations with elements, but then they can go and use the draw tool and they can add their own illustrations. So there's just a lot of possibilities there that I think are really, really exciting for our students. If you haven't explored the animate feature in Canva, it really is an amazing feature that allows you within a design to animate. So like if I'm going to just bring a butterfly. We're getting close on time, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. But if I brought in this butterfly, I can go in to animate up on top, click on create an animation, and I can make this butterfly move along my screen. And now thinking about that and having your students create these videos or presentations, now they can add all of these animations to what they've created. And what's neat is they can also use those animations when they are drawing. So if they wanted to actually make their drawings come to life, they would be able to do that too. And I had a student that did that in a remarkable way. It blew my mind because I hadn't even thought about animating your own illustrations, but they did, and it was just really incredible. So as we kind of come to a close tonight, I would like you to kind of think about what your next steps are when you are wanting to create another learning adventure in your classroom. So just like last time when we had kind of a couple options of things that you can create, you have some things that you can create here. And in that resource that I gave you in that one pager, there is a link to the participant guide. And in that participant guide, you are going to find kind of all of the resources to either create a website kind of portfolio template that maybe you could share with your students for them to be able to curate their learning, or you could maybe choose to do an exemplar and have students create some type of an exemplar for you to use that you would be able to bring into the classroom as well. And in that exemplar that I have, or in that participant guide that I've given you, there's lots of resources in there. And then also remember that you have access to also the teacher resources. And there's so many amazing resources in here that you can access. And the Canva Design School is continuously adding more and creating just more content for teachers. There's going to be a lot more coming out in before the end of the year. So just keep a lookout and just know that I'm here to support you all. So just reach out anytime. All of my contact information is on this one-page website, two-page website that I gave you. So make sure that you reach out if you have questions, things that maybe aren't I'm not great at the tech support, things that should be working that aren't. However, if you need ideas or you just are wondering how you could make something work and bring it into your classroom, always feel free to reach out. And as always, Abigail, thank you so much for hosting and always making me feel so welcome. It's always just lovely to be with all of you.
Thank you everyone for joining, and Tisha as well for another great session with lots of ideas that I'm sure we can take away and use in our classrooms almost straight away. Please just remember that because this was a 3-part series, if you happen to miss a session but are able to catch up, please let us know, and then we can mark you as complete in Plink as well. And also, I hope that the team that we've created might become a space where people can share ideas and answer people's questions. I will try and monitor it, so if people do have questions that people can't answer, I might be flicking them through to Tisha in the hope that she can answer them as well. But thank you everyone for your great participation, and hopefully you came away with some good things to use.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your night.